Hey guys, tonight we climb aboard a Viking longship not with war in our hearts or plunder in our hands, but with something far more mundane. A sea chest full of itchy tunics and damp socks. You're not here to raid a monastery or conquer distant shores. Round you, half-asleep sailors are tucking linen bags under benches and rolling woolen cloaks with casual efficiency. You're clutching your belongings like a confused tourist on a medieval cruise. You were here to figure out how an Odinist named Viking sailors kept their clothes folded neatly. No less in voyages that reeked of fish, sweat, and salt spray. You trudged toward the wooden vessel before dawn, feet crunching frost-laced grass as seabirds screech overhead. The harbor smells of brine and old rope. A few sailors snore, one mumbles a prayer to Thor, another quietly eats a hard biscuit that's definitely older than you. You begin to notice the rhythm of the boat, how it rocks, how it breathes with the water. Folding clothes on this thing isn't just about tidiness's survival. There's no official record of Viking folding manuals, of course, but textile archaeology tells us a surprising amount. A wooden guardian of dry socks. Their clothes were tailored and stitched from scratch, sheep to spindle to shirt. Wool dominated, but linen made rare appearances, especially for underlayers. Clean ones were signs of luxury. Or someone who didn't row. A soggy tunic could mean days of chills and illness. A misplaced sock, misery. Head. The longship rocks gently, its dragon-headed prow sneering into the mist. You see how they fold sleeves inward, first tucking them sharp and tight, then roll from the collar down to the hem. Someone offers you a strip of dried fish. You accept, chewing slowly as your tongue tries to remember what flavor is. It's not perfect origami, but it's compact, water-resistant, and just rigid enough to stack under the plank without sliding into someone's fish stew. Neat rows, like woolen bread loaves. You board carefully slippery timbers. Mind you, and the ship groans under your weight like it disapproves of your fashion choices already. Inside, 2 linen undershirts, 3 wool tunics. 1 pair of decent trousers. Viking sailors didn't travel light exactly, but they traveled smart. Clothing was precious handmade, mended, and often inherited. Every fold, every stitch told a story. The smell of the ship resin, rope, and seaweed settles into your nose. Not exactly lavender-scented linen, but oddly comforting. The hum of low voices blends with creaking timbers and the slap of waves. No one's shouting, no one's rushing. Act. You folded, packed, and survived the morning with some degree of Viking dignity. Some practical, some absurd, and sometimes both. And boots that have somehow never been dry since the first frost of spring. There's also a square of cloth, whose original color you've ever gotten either, a rag or a capelet, depending on how desperate you get. There's no privacy here, no cozy quarters. The deck is your bedroom, dining room, wardrobe, and occasionally your toilet. The chest at your feet is heavy, carved roughly, and secured with a knotted leather strap. They re-watching with faint amusement as you fumble with your first attempt to stow your gear under the plank bench. You try to spread your tunic out flat. Wrong. You try rolling it. Still wrong. One grizzled oarsman grunts something that sounds like fold it, like a salted herring, which somehow makes sense. This is your world now. You glance up and realize no one's helping you. The sea breeze picks up, and a nearby shield clatters against the hull, so you watch and imitate. You wedge your gear beside your sleeping spot and wrap your cloak around your shoulders. The air grows colder as the sky lightens. Historically, Viking longships were marvels of design, shallow draft, speedy, and terrifyingly elegant. But inside they were cramped, loud, and constantly damp. Historians still argue whether Viking sea chests were used as literal pillows, or whether that is just a romantic flourish. But yours, it's your everything now. You lie back on your folded cloak, watching mist rise from the fjord. Still, your left boot's already mysteriously wet again. You wake to the sound of a gull arguing with the mast. The ship has slipped its moorings, and now you're gliding across a dull gray sea. Sky smeared with clouds the color of old porridge. Around you, cloaks flap lazily in the breeze, and boots thump against planks as sailors shift and stretch. It's time to sort your clothing again, not out of boredom, but necessity. The blue one dyed with woad most likely has a tear along the hem stitched up with mismatched thread. Wool was ideal for the climate, water-resistant when lanolin rich, breathable and warm even when damp. And damp was the rule here, not the exception. Linen was costly and harder to produce, frayed easily, wore down fast, but it was worth the comfort if you could afford it. And the gray one? Possibly the warmest? Possibly cursed? Judging by the reaction of your bunkmate when you picked it? Viking clothes were not mere costumes for horn helmet fantasies. They were survival gear, battle armor, bedding, blankets. A risky move they might blow away, or worse, be borrowed by someone with larger feet and fewer morals. One man is brushing down a woolen hood with what looks like a pine branch. Another is carefully inspecting the seams of his trousers. There's a quiet reverence here, like monks attending to their sacred relics, except their relics are wool leggings and shirtlint. You ask an older sailor about it. He tells you it is a sweat catcher stuffed inside the back of a tunic to absorb heat, especially useful during rowing. Side. An extra tunic, an extra pair of socks, and what looks like a love letter pressed between folds. You pretend not to see that part. You raise an eyebrow. He shrugs. Better than dripping on your belt knife. You pull your cloak tight and lie back again. Chest secure, socks re-rolled. Tunics ready for tomorrow, whenever the storm hits. Which, judging by the sky, might be in 5 minutes. Personal hygiene aboard a Viking ship is more of a suggestion than a rule. Viking sailors didn't wear fancy footwear, just leather boots treated with fish oil or tallow. The truth likely depends on how desperate, dirty, or dignified a crew felt. Everything had a place, especially when your closet was a damp boat slicing through northern seas. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is space. Viking longships didn't exactly allow for sprawling closets. If you wanted dry clothes, they had to be packed away from leaks, tucked under your sleeping bench, or sometimes even hung in waterproof sacks along the hull. But one thing's sure, keeping clothes. Functional was a shared art. You lunge to rescue your drying boot just before it sails overboard. A crewmate laughs softly and points to a spare pair tied with string and hung like a trophy above his seat. You nod. You'll learn. Waterproofing was never perfect, especially not when salt water conspired against you at every step. You'd kill for a comb? But so far all you've got is a wooden toothpick and the desperate hope that your scalp does and tees start crawling. And if you were lucky, a conversation starter at feasts. There's a kind of calm, but it's not peaceful. It's more the calm of people who know that real trouble takes its time. You sit up, still wrapped in your cloak, and reach for your chest. You lift your tunics one by one. Each one carries a story in its weave.
Ow.
The brown one still smells faintly of smoke. Viking wardrobes were mostly wool, with the occasional linen piece thrown in especially for wealthier folks or, say, anyone trying to impress a chieftain's daughter. You run your hands along a linen undershirt, softer than the tunic's whiter too, though now it's taken on the color of old cream and sea mist. A sailor beside you picks at his sock, muttering about lice. You pretend not to notice, And then the boots. You unstrap yours and sigh, still wet.
Always wet.
You try drying them out a bit, leaving them on the deck where the breeze might help. You glance around. Others are tending to their gear too. Historians still argue whether Vikings had formal laundry rituals at sea. Some believe they rinsed their clothes in seawater. Others say they used river stops. The quirkiest item in your chest? A triangular cloth square with a looped cord on one end? It looks like a mitten without a purpose. You refold your gear using the method you half-mastered earlier, sleeves in, rolled tight, corners aligned. That last bit is clever. One sailor shows you a pouch he's oiled with fat, stitched from calfskin and tied with braided wool. You begin to appreciate the subtle Viking obsession with preparedness. Suddenly the wind picks up, flinging sea spray across the deck. The ship creaks, the men murmur, and a cold gust slithers down your back like a wet eel. Somewhere another gull cries. Somewhere your left boot is still wet. And miraculously, for the first time today, your left boot is dry. By now, your sea chest is a battlefield. Tunics folded, unfolded, then folded again. Socks rolled, crushed, re-rolled. You watch a veteran, his beard braided with what appears to be fish bones, unroll his tunic with surgeon-like care. He lays it flat across his lap, smooths the creases with a stone, folds the sleeves in like he's tucking in a child, and then with practiced flicks of the wrist, rolls it from hem to collar, ending with a tight half-knot in the middle. Before they were warriors, they were sons of farmers and shepherds. The folds keep wool from bulging, help the oils in the cloth resist sea moisture. Others think there was a shared northern style, something like the precursor to the army roll, designed for compact travel. Not perfect, but solid. A passing sailor snorts, "That'll do for someone who folds like a Saxon," which you decide is both an insult and a compliment. Packing by body part. Tunics on the left, socks and leg wraps on the right, underthings rolled tightly and stashed behind. Everything has a place. If you need to dress in the dark, half-frozen and windswept, muscle memory guides you. What we do know is that Viking burial sites often reveal carefully folded garments placed beside the dead, even at sea burials. It's survival. Your possessions ride beneath your bench-stacked cloth bundles, sealed satchels, maybe a few trinkets or tokens from loved ones. Ropes keep the folds from loosening during rocking waves. Outward folds show pride, clean edges, neat lines, the Viking equivalent of flexing your wardrobe. For the first time, you don't feel like a stowaway on someone else's journey. You feel like a part of the crew. Inward folds are humble. Practical. Maybe you're keeping something hidden. Maybe you just don't want anyone seeing the hole in your sleeve. More importantly, they serve as grab loops, quick handles for emergencies. A sailor beside you mimes the motion. Storm hits, wave crashes, you yank your cloak out like pulling a sword. It's funny, Vikings had a way of turning even laundry into a battle drill. The sky softens from dull pewter to a gentle silver, and the sails creak above like an old man's sigh. You close your eyes for a moment, listening to the wind tug at the rigging and the muttered curses of someone whose tunic just blew overboard. One man has a carved bone comb with initials etched into it. Another, a tiny linen pouch that smells faintly of rosemary and homesickness. A folded tunic meant care. A folded cloak meant readiness. A well-folded death shroud. That meant someone respected you. Your tunics are folded like sad sandwiches, but they're your sandwiches. You even repack your spare pair of trousers with a kind of theatrical flourish, earning a small cheer from the one-eyed sailor nearby. And most importantly, make the act of dressing less like a chaotic scramble and more like a calming ritual. When storms hit, you don't want to be hunting for your cleanest trousers in a swamp of soggy linen. They knew how to fold tunics in winter, so they'd stay dry for spring. That method didn't vanish, it's seat adapted. It's part textile origami, part religious rite. You found yourself developing a quiet obsession with your woolen inventory, treating each garment like it might one day save your life, or at least cushion your spine when the boat hits another wave. Heavier, coarser, and edged with fur, it folds differently. You lay it across your lap, folding it into thirds lengthwise, then rolling it from the hood down, pressing out air as you go. Some men wear their cloaks constantly, never folding them unless it's time for sleep. Others roll them tightly and use them as bolsters, propped under their necks like awkward pillows. You're not alone. Every Viking sailor has their system. They mimic the move and bungle it completely. The man watches you, says nothing, just raises an eyebrow and nods toward your mess of cloth. Fold like a farmer, pack like a raider, he mutters, with the cryptic tone of someone who's said this line to 20 confused rookies before you. The idea, apparently, is this. Viking men grew up learning to fold clothes on dry land. And so, what you're learning now isn't just nautical clothing storage, it's Viking memory, passed from sod house to longship. Historians still argue whether this fold-and-roll method had any uniform rules. Some claim it varied clan to clan. You finally get your roll to hold. Packing on a Viking ship is a delicate affair. You spot a curious practice. Some of the sailors are binding their tunics with cord after folding. It looks excessive until you realize the reason. Another trick? It's not just clever. You begin to feel proud of your little corner. Next, we teach you the sealskin tuck, he says, deadpan. You don't know if he's joking. With Vikings, it could go either way. Your cloak gets special treatment. You try both. Neck wins. You catch another detail. Some folds face outward, others inward.
Oh, yes.
This isn't random. You settle in again, resting your back against the plank. Folded cloak beneath you, chest packed tight like a puzzle box. Even if your folding still needs divine intervention, the sea is calm. For now, you smile. You're learning, fold by fold. The wind shifts. It's not a loud change, but you feel it in your bones cooler now, saltier, with that distinct edge that warns of distant rain and closer discomfort. Around you, the other sailors stir like wolves catching a scent. Not fear exactly, just mild weathered annoyance. It's the kind of wind that whispers. You reel about to get damp in strange places. You shift your position and glance at the bundles tucked under benches. Most are still in place, still folded with Viking precision. But one roll, just one, has betrayed its owner. A flap of wool peeks out from beneath a crate, dragging slowly across the deck with each swell. Its color, once probably green, now looks more like swamp stew. You lean over and grab it before it escapes entirely. The man next to you grunts in thanks. That's my best tunic, he says, deadpan. Been wearing it since the last raid. Others point to burial findings where status-linked clothing correlates with grave goods. Your cloak, though warm, is unremarkable. Your tunics, passable. But your linen shirt, now folded neatly again, might actually earn you a nod from someone higher up the deck. Not that anyone said so yet. But one thing is clear, even from your damp vantage point. Vikings wore their stories, and often their ambitions. Went down at it. Which one? He shrugs. Doesn't matter. They've softened slightly since yesterday, but the seams still drink water like they're cursed. You wrap the ankles with spare wool strips, a trick you saw another sailor use to stop wind from slithering down the sides. You smooth the edges, pat down the creases, and wrap it tight, tucking it behind your back like a practiced craftsman. You watch as a man ties his tunic bundle to a nail in the bench frame with a length of gut cord. No one laughs. Everyone does the same within moments. Folded clothes, lashed down like treasures. Maybe it doesn't scream chieftain, but it might just whisper competent. From water, from loss, from the 1,000 little humiliations the sea has planned for you. One sailor wears a pin shaped like a raven. Another has a twisted silver armband engraved with runes. A few of the more superstitious types attach tiny bones or teeth to their belt's charms against drowning or seasickness or possibly fashion sense. But in the texture of your cloak, the hue of your tunic, and yes, even how badly it reeks after 3 weeks at sea. No, he says, they were my brothers. Until he lost both feet to frostbite. He says it plainly, with no flourish. Just a fact, like you might say. I once wore this to a wedding, confident. A soft-spoken "this is who I am," stitched in cloth and dyed in root pigment. Not because he's vain, but because red thread was what he had. It leaves a crooked trail like a scar, but he sews carefully, methodically, as if each stitch might be his last act on this earth. And this is when you realize something else about Viking clothing. Status smells. Their tunics are short-cut and fitted clothes, ideal for quick movement, and stitched along the sides with decorative bands. Their tunics are longer, sometimes torn, and often tied at the waist with frayed twine. No belts, no ornament. You see one crouched by the prow, washing a cloth in a bucket of rainwater like it's spun gold. He pats it dry with shaking hands and tucks it under his cloak like a treasure. You suspect more than one of them has a girl waiting in every porter, at least they hope so. Literally and figuratively, what you wear on this ship sends messages not in the way perfume ads do today. You start noticing the unspoken dress code. Ship's chieftain, possibly tall, with a face like carved iron, wears a heavy cloak dyed dark blue. That's not cheap. Woad or indigo was costly, and this cloak has stripes of contrasting wool sewn into the edges. Showy, but not impractical, it tells the crew. I command. I don't need to prove it. The younger warriors favor reds and rusty browns, warm colors, aggressive and loud, probably meant to mask blood and wine stains. Then there are the thralls, the enslaved, wear undyed wool ruff, itchy, and the color of despair. Historians still argue whether color alone determined social class in Viking dress. Some claim the dyes were too unstable to draw strict conclusions. You take another look at your own gear, and there's jewelry. It's even out here on this cold, fishy voyage. Some men wear rings or brooches. The most surprising thing? No one's feel boastful, no one's strutting. The showiness is quiet. You catch an older sailor repairing a rip in his cloak, using red thread. Another man is re-waxing his boots with bare fat. The smell so intense you wonder if it's also a weapon. You ask if he made the boots himself. You go back to your little pile and try not to think about footless brothers. Instead, you examine your own boots, weathered but serviceable. And while you're at it, you take a moment to refold your cloak again. The wind moans louder now. Rain flicks against your cheek. This isn't just neatness, it's protection. You lie back again, your folded bundles warm behind you, your boots wrapped tight, and your cloak tucked like a sleepy wolf around your shoulders. The ship groans, the sea swells, and the air begins to smell like wet iron and roasted onions someone's trying to cook. For now, your folded world holds fast. Rain wakes you. It's not the kind of stormy, dramatic rain sung about by skalds and sailors. This is the soft, relentless drizzle that slips between seams, seeps into wool, and ruins your sense of time. Everything is wet. Your hair clings to your neck. Your tunic clings to your thighs, and your patience. Hanging by a thread, probably woolen, probably damp. And at least one man is balancing a bucket of rainwater on his head. They've strung up a line between two shields, not unlike what you saw before, but this time, it's not for drying. It's the Viking equivalent of a washing machine, minus the machine. Or frankly, much of the washing. Someone mutters, perfect laundry weather, and you're not sure if it's sarcasm or sincerity. The crew gathers near the prow where a trough is formed, collecting fresh rainwater. The thudding is rhythmic, soothing even, like a lullaby made from elbow grease and moss. But digs have uncovered stone weights with smooth surfaces, likely used for pressing water from cloth. About pulling a dry, warm tunic over your head and knowing, if only for a moment, that you've mastered something. Combined with mentions of soap-like substances and preserved combs, the evidence leans toward a surprising conclusion. Vikings weren't filthy, just had contextually high standards. The men improvise. One lays his tunic across his shoulders, letting body heat do the work. For flattening, he says. Better folds, less air. Another wears his damp shirt beneath his cloak to steam it dry. It's the kind of tune that makes scrubbing a collar feel almost holy. You join in. Quietly off-key. One bold soul ties his socks to the mast where they flap like sad battle flags. A man adds a fistful of lichen, rubs it between his palms until it foams slightly, and gestures to you to try. The drizzle lets up just enough for the damp to feel more spiritual than physical. Turns out, this is the closest you're going to get to a laundry day at sea. You watch as a few sailors begin their preparations. It's a delicate operation, made more impressive by the fact that no one is wearing shoes. You get your linen undershirt, your least wet tunic, and a sock that smells like betrayal. With precision, with routine, with a kind of quiet respect for wool and thread and the things that kept them warm when the world turned to ice, you dip your shirt in, swish, swirl, scrub. It's a spare, he says, grinning, or a mitt, or a pouch, depends on how dry it gets. There's a string of curses followed by laughter. No one helps. Multi-purpose, minimal, folded for function, but layered with pride. Again, the wet garments hang limp but clean, and the air smells like salt, wool, and a dash of something almost fresh. They just nod in sympathy, because they've all been there. They will be again. Dry enough, folded tight, ready for whatever storm or surprise the next hour brings. Don't crush it, someone warns. You'll stretch the weave, you nod solemnly, as if you've known this your whole life. One pair still vaguely resembles fabric, the other more like a philosophical concept. Secretly, you wonder how a people famous for smashing skulls with axes can be this gentle with fabric. Keeps the boots less sea-like. But the effect is remarkable. Your boots gleam slightly and the seams appear tighter. A sailor gives you a thumbs up. Shirts are shaken out, cloaks folded, tunics snapped in the air like flags, each piece handled with a care that would shock anyone who has only heard of Vikings through battle sagas and bloody poems. Or maybe that was just a raised finger of ambiguous intent. Hard to tell. It's a group effort. People share stones, not sharp ones, but smooth river rocks tied in cloth, used to dab and beat dirt from seams. Historians still debate how often Vikings washed their clothes. Skeptics argue they didn't bother at sea. In this ritual, it's not about cleanliness in the modern sense. It's about control. It's about not letting the sea win. Of course, drying it is another problem entirely. The ship offers no sunlight, only pale gray haze. You wring out your shirt, hang it across your knees, and wait. A younger sailor, barely sprouting a beard, hums while pressing his trousers under a plank. You ask what he's doing. It's a little odd, a little brilliant. There's even a chant someone starts, not lyrical, not beautiful, but consistent. A sudden gust flips someone's drying cloak into a puddle. You turn to your sea chest and decide to reorganize. You start with the tunics folded tight, creased by hand, then the undershirts, now less sour-smelling than before. Then the socks. Someone hands you a sliver of seal blubber. You look confused. For rubbing into leather, he explains. You try it. It smells predictably, like everything else here, wet, wild, and very Viking. As the rain fades to mist, the crew begins to gather their things. Because yes, they raided. Yes, they conquered, but they also folded. You watch the last sock return to its owner. It's tied around a belt like a tiny trophy. He notices your glance. That's the Viking way. The boat rocks gently now. You wrap your cloak around yourself again, feeling the lines of your newly organized chest behind your back. And for once and possibly both, boots are dry. The rain has stopped, but the damp remains, clinging to everything like an over-attached ghost. You sit quietly, watching the horizon blur into mist. Your cloak pulled tight and your back pressed against the folded bundle beneath the bench. The crew is quieter now. Even the gulls seem to have grown tired of screeching. It's a good moment to huddle near the hearth if you had one. Instead, there's the firebox. A low, shallow metal tray filled with glowing coals. Protected from the wind by boards and a very anxious man who keeps hissing at anyone who steps too close. Another man scoots beside you and opens his sea chest. Someone starts mending a sleeve using what looks like sinew thread, squinting in the half-light with needle between teeth. His hands are rough, but the stitches are delicate, almost tender. Inside, layers of cloth, each folded with maddening precision, and miraculously dry. He pulls out a tunic the color of rusted iron and spreads it near the coals, like a cat claiming a sunbeam. It's not much, but it throws off just enough heat to make this wet world feel human again. Cheap dye bleeds. You shuffle closer. The fire's warmth is a small miracle. No one agrees, but no one fights. Viking fashion philosophy, it turns out, is a topic with many schools of thought. Steam rises from damp sleeves and soggy boots, and for a moment, the boat becomes a floating sauna of grumbling warriors in damp wool. Then he lays it near the coals, places a smooth stone on top, and waits. Your cloak is mostly dry now, but you drape one edge over your knees, letting it catch more heat. Presses it. Keeps it warm and dry all the way through. You pull out your spare tunic brown, plain functional and shake it loose. The folds hold. The seams are holding up. You feel competent. Someone offers a chunk of smoked fish. You accept, chewing slowly, letting the salt and heat chase away the chill. You ask how he kept it so perfect. But the evidence of soot on cloth, of charred hems and scorched edges, suggests these fireside moments weren't rare. Mending, drying, flattening these weren't chores. They were rituals. You didn't just wear a tunic. You prepared it. He grins. Outside, the mist lifts just enough for the sky to show hints of dull pink. You begin folding again slowly, carefully, by firelight. The repetition. You fold like a man preparing for marriage, he says. The structure. In a world of chaos, of unpredictable seas and shifting winds, folding is something you can control. Okay, sleeves in, fold in thirds, roll from the collar. Cloak, edge to edge, doubled once, then again. You weigh it down with a rock, with rocks, over fire, layered with bark. Others join in, a murmur of voices blending with firelight and cloth and waves. It's not a song for battle. It's not even a song for home. It's a song for folding, for quiet hands and dry boots, for surviving, softly. The scent is overwhelming, woodsy, oily, a bit like an unwashed pinnacone left in a stew pot, but the effect is impressive. The fur fluffs out, repels moisture better, and looks significantly more alive than before. The result, no fur. Just wool, a little matted, a little tired. You smooth it with your palm, then with the back of your thumbnail mimicking the brushing motion. It helps a little. Surprisingly effective. Warm, flat. Smells faintly of fire and achievement. Birch bark. A man who probably once burned a monastery is now reattaching a cuff with the patience of a grandmother sewing buttons for Sunday church. Keeps the wet out and the fleas in. You're not sure if he's joking. Probably not. The firelight casts odd shadows across the deck. Cloaks flicker like ghosts. Hair glints gold and gray. You watch as the fabric pulls tight, knot by knot. It's mesmerizing. What do you care? They're your only friends. This is when the debates begin. It's not loud arguments, just muttered, meandering conversations that seem to rise naturally whenever men sit too close to fire. Green's better, someone says, shows less blood. Blue's nobler, another mutters, mouthful of bread, means something. Depends on the woad. Red's fastest. Laughter follows. You feel the warmth working into your bones, and you take this moment to check your own gear. Then the man beside you offers you a new trick, the double fold by the fire. He takes a woolen under tunic, folds it lengthwise once, then widthwise, forming a tight square. What's the stone for? You ask. Flattens it. It's essentially Viking ironing. You try it with your sock. Historians still argue whether Viking sailors took their clothes this seriously. Some say it's romanticizing that folding was functional, nothing more. A sailor beside you begins brushing the fur trim of his cloak. He uses a pine branch dipped in melted tallow. He catches you staring and grins, keeps the fleas moving. Another sailor laughs. You smile and look down at your own cloak's edge. Ship rocks gently. The fire crackles. There's something calming about it. The man with the fishbone beard chuckles beside you. You pretend to take offense neatly then. No, he says with fear. You both laugh. Someone begins humming a slow, wordless tune. You wrap yourself once more in your now warm cloak, lean back against your chest of half-dry belongings, and let your eyes drift toward the horizon. And at your feet, your sock flattened, warm, vaguely squares finally, undeniably, dry. The next morning breaks without ceremony. No sunrise. It's just a slow bleed of pale gray light through thicker gray clouds, like the sky has forgotten how to shine properly. The sea grumbles beneath the ship, and your body feels made of wood. Every joint stiff, every muscle resentful. Your cloak is still dry, folded beside you like a loyal hound, and for that you're grateful. You reach for your tunic today, the deep brown one, slightly too short in the sleeves, but dependable. As you slip it on, you realize the fold lines still hold from last night. That's a luxury now. Then comes the tunic wool, thick but not suffocating. Then your over tunic, woven tighter, with a slightly higher collar that flaps when the wind catches it just right. You cinch it all with a woolen belt, more symbolic than supportive, but good for hanging your knife and keeping things from flapping. Trousers. While the wealthy had full wardrobes with multiple cloak styles and even imported silk trim. You reach for your cloak and drape it over one shoulder, fastening it with a wooden pin you carved yourself during a particularly boring night watch. Gleaming, probably inherited, you ask about it. He grins and says it's cursed. He doesn't elaborate. It's not fancy, but it works. Barely. Others believe practicality ruled Olive. It kept you warm. It stayed. If not, it was traded, burned, or turned into bandages, neat creases in wool. Like the ship is its own kind of school, and folding is the first and last subject of the day. Today's lesson, layering. You're not sailing through the warm Mediterranean. You're in the North Atlantic, where the wind cuts like judgment and the spray feels like personal insult. Apparently, there are styles half cloaks, shoulder capes, full drapes. It's a sleep cloak, thinner, softer, used for wrapping the body tightly at night. It folds easily and doubles as a pillow when rolled. You hadn't even known that was an option. Some prefer fastening over the left shoulder for weapon access. Others swear by center fastening for even warmth. You quickly press it down, grateful your underlayers are in place and dry, dignity preserved. You've been using your boots as a pillow, which explains a lot about your neck. A sock, when folded and tied right, becomes a pouch. One sailor has even rolled his leggings into a neck cushion. Ingenious, slightly uncomfortable looking, but very Viking. One sailor boasts that he lines his cloak with rabbit fur. Another mutters that rabbits don't belong on boats. Overlapping like roof tiles, snug but not tight, tucked just beneath the knee. Sails groan. And as you sit back down, now wrapped, layered, and slightly better insulated than yesterday, you feel not warm, exactly but prepared. The longship creaks. You watch as another man ties down his sea chest, then folds a spare cloak into a wedge and wedges it beneath his seat. Stops the cold from crawling up, he explains. You stand, shift your weight. No slipping, no bunching. Success. Catch a sweat, he says, tapping his collar. It keeps wind from whistling straight into your chest. They keep the wind out and stop trousers from flapping like sails. You've seen some sailors use leather straps instead, but they creak with every step and leave marks. Cloth is kinder. The only way to survive is to layer your clothes right like armor made of sheep. First, the linen undershirt. It's rougher than yesterday's, and it smells faintly of salt and fatigue, but it's dry. Some tuck their tunics into their trousers. Others let them hang loose for better air circulation. One man layers 3 tunics and then wraps a short cloak over his shoulders like a scarf. It's ridiculous. Somehow it works. You're not alone in this morning dressing ritual. All around, the crew layers up like sentient onions, traps air, and when stacked properly, it creates a kind of insulation that keeps heat in and moisture out. But do it wrong and you'll sweat too much, then freeze once the wind hits. You learn quickly where to loosen, where to tighten, and where to fold down collars so the rain, dose, and tea pool inside your neck like a personal pond. Layering isn't about fashion. It's about temperature control. Historians still argue over how standardized Viking layering was. Some suggest commoners wore little more than a tunic. You adjust your layers as the ship turns westward. The wind shifts again sharper now, and colder. Beside you, a man in a blue and gray cloak fastens his with a round bronze brooch. Intricate, another sailor shares his own tip, folding a square of linen and placing it between tunic and cloak at the neck. You try it, it works. You feel mildly invincible. There's also the matter of leg wrap strips of woolen cloth bound around the calves. Crisscrossed and tucked, not unlike modern gaiters. You wrap your legs carefully, mimicking what you've observed over the past few days. A voice from behind. You finally look like you won't freeze before breakfast. You smile. It's a compliment from a man who once wore a shirt inside out for an entire week and claimed it was for luck. The conversation turns to cloaks again, and then someone pulls out a second cloak, small, light, oddly stitched. You look down at your own bundle. Folding, you realize, is more than just order. It's about repurposing. A tunic is warmth. A cloak is shelter. Later, as you crouch near the mast, adjusting your layers again, a sudden gust lifts the edge of your tunic. The sea seems to approve. Around you, the wind picks up again. You do the same. Because on this voyage, that's the closest thing you'll get. And somehow it's enough. You wake to shouting, not battle shouting, not storm shouting. It's domestic shouting, the kind that only happens when someone has lost something and someone else is pretending not to know anything about it. You blink, stretch, and sit up just in time to hear. Who took my best trousers? The accused party looks utterly unconcerned. He's wearing a fine pair of trousers gray wool, neat seams, decorative stitching along the thigh, suspiciously exactly like the ones missing. He shrugs. These mine. Yours have a patch on the knee. He pauses, then looks down. No patch. No one really cares. No one's going to duel over trousers. But the message is clear. Keep your clothes folded, guarded, possibly labeled if you want to keep them. Silence. And then laughter. Soft, groggy, half-delighted laughter that ripples down the boat like a lazy wave. This is your lesson today. How to defend your wardrobe. A small loop sewn into the corner of your tunic. A knot in the belt string. You settle on folding everything into a specific shape, tight rectangles. Seems aligned, a little crooked triangle at the end. Anyone who unfolds that will have to fold it exactly the same to avoid suspicion. One sailor wraps his undershirt inside his trousers, then rolls the whole thing into his cloak. Not only does this keep everything together, it makes it much harder to casually swipe just one item. Most sailors have sea chests with latches or rope bindings. But a few clever devils insert small wedges of wood between the lid and the side. You'd never notice unless you knew. Try to open it quickly and it jams. It's not a lock, just a speed bump. But it buys time. You try it. It's a little bulky, but undeniably efficient. You look down at your own pile, still folded, still tucked, still yours. The tunic, in turn, is used as a cushion. He's created a multi-layered fortress of wool and strategy. You're impressed and mildly threatened. We know that embroidery, brooches, and colors varied clan to clan, and certain motifs showed up again and again. They're statements. Simply drapes his garments over a pole and claims the wind does the work. He smells like ambition and despair. No one steals his clothes. It's about rhythm. Cloak rolled like a sacred scroll, like rowing, like breathing. It's not just neat, it's defensive. Around you, the great Viking laundry ballet continues. Quiet, precise, deeply personal. Boundaries. You tuck it beneath your seat, then place your sea chest on top, angled slightly so no one can pull it free without waking you. One man folds in half, then thirds. Another rolls from shoulder to hem. Third folds lengthwise, then knots the sleeves together like a rope. There are arguments, of course, good-natured. Sleepy debates over which method preserves warmth, which one minimizes creases, which one looks most intimidating when laid out before battle. Paranoia? Maybe, but your neck is finally warm and you intend to keep it that way. Messages. But individual wardrobe defense systems? That's harder to prove. And yet, when you're trapped on a boat for weeks, you begin to notice who folds what and how.
Ow.
You feel a flicker of pride until you spot your left sock dangling from the end of someone's bench like a limp squirrel. A pair of dry trousers is worth more than silver. A clean tunic can change your mood. A well-folded cloak, pure gold. Snatch it back before it gets adopted. This kind of light thievery is half joke, half survival. The sea wears down both fabric and patience. Some men take it very seriously. One sailor has begun marking his garments with bone toggles tiny, carved pieces shaped like birds or fish, sewn into the inner collar or cuff, subtle but unmistakable. Another uses dyed thread to stitch a symbol just one rune into the hem of each sleeve. Odin's watching, he says, grinning. You consider your own options? Historians still argue whether Vikings truly personalized their clothing in this way. Theft prevention becomes an art. You notice another clever tactic, interweaving garments. Another man stores his socks inside his boots, then rolls the boots in a spare tunic. Then there's the chess trick. Time, on a boat full of bored men with identical socks, is everything. You begin to see folded clothes as more than garments. These are mine. These are not yours. Touch them, and you will suffer the wrath of passive-aggressive folding. You start folding with extra attention now. Pressing seams flat with your palm, tucking corners under, making each tunic resemble a perfect slab of woolen architecture. Your cloak, the crown jewel of your small collection, gets its own wrap folded, rolled, and then tied with a strip of rawhide. Later, as you watch others begin their own folding routines, you notice something funny. Everyone thinks their method is the best, and then there's the minimalist. He owns one tunic, one cloak, and no socks. He folds nothing. You finish your morning fold and lean back, content. It's not about perfection. You glance at your bundles. Tunics like stone tablets, trousers folded to angles sharp enough to sail. And beside them, your sock recovered, refolded, unmistakably yours. Let someone try and take that now. You've stopped checking the horizon. Not because you've grown lazy or lost your sense of direction. No, it's just that the sea is the same shade of gray, no matter where you look. The clouds haven't moved in 3 days. The wind has forgotten how to surprise anyone. Not declared officially, there's no crier, no drum, but you feel it in the air. Everyone is focused, quiet, attending to small tasks that demand patience. There's sewing, there's patching.
Actually, just enough that the threads are whispering mutiny.
So you take out your small repair kit, gifted to you by a very old woman with no teeth and more wisdom than 10 chieftains. It contains a bone needle, a wad of sinew, and a strip of scrap wool. There's more careful folding than usual, to pay someone else to do it. The long ship becomes a floating tailor shop, minus the tea, and with significantly more axe scars. But eventually the needle wins. Some claim sailors wore clothes until they disintegrated. Others point to the abundance of needles, thread fragments. You fold the tunic carefully and press it beneath your sea chest to flatten the seam. Victory. And repaired garments found in Norse graves and settlements. What we do know, fabric was precious. A tunic wasn't disposable. It was durable. When it failed, it was resurrected. You press the fabric flat, pinch the worn seam together, and start sewing. And time, on this Viking ship, is measured now only by meals and folds. Today is a repair day. Another has taken to braiding loose threads into decorative knots along his sleeve, turning damage into ornament. The man stretches the sock over a rounded stone, weaves thread in a lattice across the hole, then stitches over the top like he's weaving a miniature net. When finished, he pats it gently and says, "Better than new." You believe him, he does too. Another has tied his trousers together with rawhide strips, giving him the gait of a tired scarecrow. A third has patched his hood with strips of dyed cloth, forming what can only be described as a sea serpent's head across the crown. Your fingers are sore. Your eyes itch from salt and focus. But you smile. He says it wards off goals. You vow to try darning eventually. And then surprisingly offers you a handful of coarse flax thread. Stronger than sinew, he says. Doesn't rot in sea air. What did she teach you? You, of course, have work to do. Others are superstitious. All are deeply personal. Your favorite tunic, brown, simple, trustworthy, has begun to fray at the cuffs. And as you resume stitching, you realize something strange. There's a right way to fold clothes. Sure, but there are dozens of right ways to fix them. Some sailors use patches shaped like runes. A repaired tunic is laid out carefully, seams pressed flat, cuffs tucked in. Patched sock is rolled and tied with string. A cloak, newly rehemmed, is folded in thirds, rolled tightly, and tied shut with what looks like someone's spare bootlace. Others use thread of contrasting color, making the repair a kind of badge. One man has reinforced his elbows with pieces of rawhide, punched with holes like leather lace. For leaning, he says. I do a lot of leaning. Begin with the cuffs. Threading the sinew through the eye of the bone needle is a miniature battle. Your hands are cold. The sinew is stubborn. Your neighbor watches for a while, then says, "That's not how my mother taught me." You pause. He grins. You laugh. You accept, grateful. Historians still debate how common textile repair was on Viking voyages. You finish your cuff ruff, a little crooked, but secure. Elsewhere on the ship, similar operations are underway. One sailor is relining the hem of his cloak with seal gut watertight. He claims, though the smell might drown you before the sea does. You spot someone darning a sock. You'd never seen it done before. Your own socks? Well, they're hanging from the rigging again, drying slowly, shaped vaguely like the feet of someone who lost a wrestling match with the sea. Then there are the creative repair jobs. One sailor has used copper wire to bind a torn shoulder seam. It crackles when he moves. Some of these repairs are functional, and almost all are done before folding. You watch as one by one, sailors finish their repairs and begin folding their clothes again slowly, methodically, as if recommitting each garment to the journey. There's reverence in it, not religious, perhaps, but something close. You follow suit. Your newly sewn, tunic creased, neat, holding up like a champion, joins the others in your growing collection of well-folded, well-traveled garments. Because in this strange little world of endless water and shifting skies, you've found something real, tangible. Yours, you tuck the tunic beneath your bench, place a smooth stone on top and lean back. And as the ship rolls gently onward, you hear someone murmur, "That'll hold till the next storm." Maybe it's meant for their own shirt, maybe for you, maybe for the world. Either way you believe it. Today's quiet, not calm, just quiet. The kind of silence that settles over a crew when there's nothing left to argue about, and not enough wind to pretend there's much to do. You wake slowly, cloaked in the hush. A gull calls in the distance, but even it sounds half asleep. You stretch, listen to your joints crack like old oars, and begin your morning ritual. Tunics still folded, still mended, still loyal. Undershirt, faintly musty, but dry. Cloak, rolled into a tight, perfect bundle, warm from the sunbeams slanting through the sails. You pull each piece on with care, not because you expect to impress anyone, but because it feels good. Routine feels good. Order, in a world that wobbles beneath your feet and smells of brine and beard, is comforting. Beside you, one of the younger sailors is having a bad folding day. Roll it tight and bind it in the middle. Makes it behave. You know the signs? He unrolls his cloak too fast, rips a seam in the lining, curses softly, and tries to fold it again. Viking clothes, especially on long voyages, seem to absorb mood. Fold them in frustration, they fight back. Fold them calmly. They hold their shape like obedient warriors. It flops. The edges don't line up. He folds it again, worse. He tries the triangle method, still uneven. Finally he mutters, "The cloak hates me." You hand him your spare belt strap. Tries it. Success. You nod. Clothes don't hate you. They just like structure. It's true. You take the moment to revisit your own chest. Today's inventory day. Unofficial, but essential. You lift the lid and spread your treasures. 2 tunics, some claim their ships were chaos tools. Weapons, clothing, all jumbled together like a raid's aftermath. Others point to ship burial finds, where goods were laid with extreme care, folded and arranged with methodical elegance. Another tucks his tunic bundle beneath the prow, between 2 coils of rope. A third has tied his garments into a ball and is using it as a backrest while he mends a sandal. Socks in pairs, tied with braided string, leg wraps rolled to identical lengths, a comb placed dead center like a jewel. His cloak is folded into a triangle, tied with 3 strands of dyed wool red, white, and black. Perhaps the truth lies, as it often does, in between. 1 linen shirt, 1 spare cloak, 3 socks, a belt, 2 sashes, and a pouch of bone toggles, 1 spare set of leg wraps. It's meditative like prayer without the drama. You fold each tunic with the same care a smith might give a sword. Sleeves tucked, hem smoothed, each fold like a quiet promise. You will be warm again. And a lump of pine tar wrapped in cloth still sticky, grins. Learned from my sister. You think about the chest near your bed, and how your mother used to fold your tunics into narrow strips, so they defit like books on a shelf. You remember the smell of sun-dried linen, of lye soap and grass? The smell of pine tar drifts past you as one man oils his boots, using a scrap of linen that's been folded into a square, then twisted into a makeshift brush. Sails flutter. Men stir. She folds linens, like the gods are watching. Your hands rest there for a moment, fingers splayed, absorbing the hum of the boat, the warmth of the wood. You organize them again, not because they need it, but because you do, for symmetry, for aesthetic. Historians still discuss whether Viking sailors organized their gear this precisely. You suspect it depends on the sailor. Near the mast, one man is now layering his cloak across a shield like a tablecloth. Then there's the show-off. He opens his chest like it's a reliquary. Inside, every item has a place. Tunics folded in descending order of thickness. You ask why the colors? Luck, he says without blinking. You resist the urge to refold everything you own. Still, you take notes. And then, because the wind has nothing to say, you start a quiet competition. You and two other sailors each fold a cloak, not for speed. Yours. Solid, tight, slightly lopsided. Sailor number 1. 2, loose one corner, sticks out like a rebellious flap. Sailor number 2. Perfect. You've grown. You demand a rematch tomorrow. The day rolls on. Someone roasts fish over a shield-turned griddle. Few others nap beneath their cloaks, the folds catching sunlight like woven sails. Even the tools of folding are folded. You start thinking about home, not in a sentimental way, more like remembering the taste of something after months without it. Here it's salt and tar and wool and sweat, but somehow it's not worse, just different. The wind begins to rise against oft, promising. You gather your folded things, tuck them into the chest, and press down the lid. Order is restored. You sit back, cloak draped across your knees, and close your eyes. Tomorrow, you'll learn a new fold. But tonight, everything fits. The wind holds through the night. By morning, the ship has made more progress than the last 3 days combined. Spirits are higher, faces less grim. Swan even hums while brushing crumbs from his lap, which is about as close to celebration as you'll get out here. But speed has a cost. Everything below decor, what counts for below on a long ship is chaos. Bundles that were once neatly folded have tumbled, shifted, and spilled into corners they were never meant to reach. Quick sniff tells you what your hands already know. Sea spray has seeped into everything. You peel apart the layers like soggy bark, draping them across your knees, shoulders, and the nearest piece of dry wood. You open your sea chest to find your leg wraps doing their best impression of sea serpents. One sock is flattened beneath your sharpening stone. A tunic has completely unraveled its careful folds, and now looks like it spent the night wrestling a bad dream. Another is stuffing his tunic with straw to help absorb moisture. It's bizarre, and yet it might actually work. Then you fold not in your usual ritualistic way, but in tight utilitarian rolls that prioritize speed over elegance. Each roll is tucked into your chest like cargo, layered for airflow, topped with a square of linen to soak up whatever drips remain. Welcome to refolding in a storm's aftermath. You sigh and begin the process anew. This is a different kind of folding knot, ceremonial, not restful. It's triage. First you check for dampness. Others are doing the same. Hey, the ship looks like a Viking yard sail. One man has balanced his cloak over his helmet, using it like a makeshift drying rack. Some argue that their minimalist wardrobes couldn't afford damage, so folding, drying, and rotating garments was critical. Others suggest sheer practicality ruled. Wear one, dry one, sleep in one. Repeat. You tune it out, focusing instead on your own task. You line up your undershirts like scrolls, one beside the other. It's not warm exactly, but it's forgiving. Your trousers, you fold lengthwise, then roll from the waistband down, wrapping a cord around each like a savory wool burrito. Flat, spread out, weighted at the corners with stones.
Ow.
It's the Viking version of a beach towel. Hygiene and folding are closer cousins than you expected. You even sit cross-legged beside it, arms draped over your knees like a monk contemplating Lent. Your socks, those brave, damp survivors, you roll tight and tuck into your boots. The scent is sharp, earthy, clean. Keeps lice from settling in the seams, he mutters. They hate the smell. Properly. Either way, you know this out here. Carelessness gets clammy fast. Smells like goat, he grunts. But it'll dry faster. You decide to pass on the straw method. You start with your lightest tunic, gently pressing the fabric between your palms to squeeze out the wet. You wedge a dried pine sprig in one corner for scent, and close the lid with both hands like sealing a sacred box. Historians still puzzle over how much thought Vikings gave to clothing preservation during extended sea journeys. You overhear a few folding debates downwind, each item folded precisely, arranged by color and size. For the next gust, the next shout, the next stolen sock. He's oiling the seams with animal fat just a touch, pressed into the cloth with his thumb. Rolling's better, someone insists. Takes less space. The sea likes to sneak in through stitches. Only if you roll tight, another replies. Loose rolls are chaos. Folding flat keeps the creases aligned. But rolls don't shift in the chest, unless your chest rolls overboard. And on it goes. The sea begins to settle again. A light breeze filters through the rigging. And the sun miracle of miracles breaks through the clouds for the first time in what feels like weeks. You seize the moment, laying your cloak across the bench beside you. Nearby, another sailor is brushing his tunic with a stiff-bristled whisk made from bundled pine needles. You take note. Another sailor, older, quieter, has spread his entire wardrobe out like a chessboard. To seal them, he says softly when you ask. It's meticulous, almost artistic, and somehow, calming. You look at your own pile, and for the first time in days allow yourself to refold everything. Tunic, sleeves folded inward, collar flat, hem tucked, pressed once. Undershirt, smoothed, folded lengthwise, rolled with the grain of the weave. Trousers, folded flat, waistband, aligned with cuffs, tied in the middle. Cloak, lifted from the bench, shaken once, folded corner to corner, then again. Then once more, until it resembles a small woolen wedge of bread. Everything is returned to the chest in order, lightest to heaviest, cleanest to not quite. There yet, someone walks past and says, "You fold like a woman." You nod. "Thank you." They blink and smile. The highest compliment at sea. And in this strange, quiet aftermath, this pause between weather and movement, between chaos and calm, feel ready. Because no matter what this voyage throws at you, you can always refold. The wind is moody today, not fierce, not friendly. It's just indecisive puffing when you least expect it. Dying as soon as you adjust your cloak, sneaking up your sleeves like a gossip with cold fingers. The ship groans as it adjusts to the new rhythm. So do you, but your clothes, they're ready. Because this morning, before even opening your eyes, you refolded everything. Not out of necessity, but out of habit. Comfort. Folding has become your meditation, your ritual, your one small rebellion against the unpredictability of the sea. Today's task, creating layers for every situation, is not for fashion, not for weapons, just to trap warmth. On colder days, you add a second sash across your chest, worn diagonally like a proud messenger from the land of organization. It starts with the undershirt soft, linen, and blessedly clean. It creaks when he walks, but he claims it feels like sleeping in a cloud, a crunchy, bristly cloud. You slip it on, let it settle on your shoulders, and smooth the fabric down your ribs like a second skin. Or were they deliberate, taught through families, passed down like recipes? Evidence suggests a bit of both. But one thing's certain: those who folded with care, who layered with precision, lasted longer at sea. A small crease near the hem is smoothed with your palm. You toss it over one shoulder, pin it with a brooch, and adjust it so the edge hangs just above your knees. You untie your cloak's corner, wrap it across your chest, and secure it under your opposite arm. Just enough for warmth, not enough to trap sweat. Instantly, you feel better, protected, slightly smug, not dragging, not flapping, balanced over that. Your thinner wool tunic, dark brown and patched at the elbows. Then the overtunic, a heavier weave in dull gray, lined at the cuffs with scrapped fur, and looped through the belt to create a sort of skirt pouch. He claims it's cooler, lighter. You suspect he's just trying to keep from tripping on the stairs again. You fold the sleeves just once, letting the fur peek out like a quiet boast. Another suggests turning it inside out once a day to keep bugs guessing. You're not sure if he's joking. Each knot is placed with intention, never too tight, never too loose. If they cling like worried children, rain's already here. You've learned how to wrap yourself like a walking cocoon. You've learned how to read your clothing, how it changes in wind, how it drags when wet, how it folds differently depending on the mood of the air. Then comes the layering belt, a long strip of cloth, twisted and wrapped twice around your waist, tying it tight. The others laugh until he demonstrates an impressively dramatic spin, and then the cloak. It's folded perfectly, of course. You unfold it slowly, letting it catch the breeze, watching the cloth billow and ripple like a sail. Easy to unpin when you're sweating, easy to retie when the wind turns cold. It's simple, strong, slightly cracked from when someone stepped on it during a skirmish over fish stew, but it still holds. It's taken weeks to get here. But today, you feel like you're wearing your gear knot, just surviving inside of it. Beside you, a fellow sailor attempts a new style. A half-wrapped tunic, where the bottom hem is tucked up. Another has sewn fleece inside his cloak lining, stitched in patchwork squares with what looks like horsehair thread. You note it down anyway. Historians still debate how complex Viking layering strategies were. Were they improvisational grabbing? Whatever worked, however it worked, a longer at sea meant everything? You sit near the firebox again, warming your legs, adjusting your layers as needed. The wind shifts again. Someone notices. Nice fold, he says. You grin. He nods, impressed. It's not a joke out here. That's real wisdom. The conversation drifts to cloak techniques. One man claims you should always sleep with your cloak reverse lining out to avoid sweat staining the seams. Then comes the debate on pins and brooches. To the left, someone insists, always the left. Right shoulders for fools. Only if you fight left-handed, another snaps. One sailor claims to pin his cloak behind the neck, cape style, to free his arms. You stick to the over left shoulder style, classic, reliable. Your own brooch is bone, carved with a knot pattern you barely remember etching into it. And somehow, that means you still hold. You retie your layering belt, feeling the way the cloth hugs your ribs. You've even learned how to predict storms by how your sleeves behave. If they twitch like restless dogs, trouble coming. Later, you stand near the bow, layered like a cabbage, folds sharp, tunic steady, cloak flying in the wind. You feel composed. No armor, no sword, just wool and thread and folds. But you might as well be invincible, because the sea may throw spray, the sky may go gray, the ship may groan. But you, standing there, neatly layered, perfectly folded, you're unmoved. And that's a kind of victory no saga ever sings about. But maybe they should. The rain returns without warning. Not a storm, just a steady needling drizzle that slips between seams, runs down collars. and pools in the crevices of the ship like it's collecting secrets. You wake with damp hair, a damp tunic, and a single damp mood. Annoyance. Your chest is wet. Even your folded socks feel like they've been marinated. Your cloak is wet. Nothing looks neat. Everything looks hopeful. So today's challenge is clear: drying and folding in impossible conditions. You begin triage by laying everything out. It's not just for organization this time, but for survival. If it stays wet too long, it'll mildew. If it mildews, it will rot. And tuck it under your cloak, which you then wear like a cowl. Others argue they simply endured the wet, counting on wool's natural ability to retain warmth even when soaked. Whatever the truth, one thing's certain: folding mattered more than ever in weather like this. You look ridiculous, but your neck is warm and your tunic will slowly dry from your body heat. Possibly it smells like wet goat, but it's working. And if it rots, you'll be wearing what amounts to moss armor. You ask what for? He answers, for socks. Sweat's already in them, he says with a shrug. Might as well get them warm. You drape your cloak over the oar bench, stretch your tunic flat along the ribs of the ship, wedge your undershirt between two crates to keep it taut. Around you, the others have entered the same mode: silent, soggy determination. You wedge it between your knees, under your belt. Not flattering, but surprisingly efficient. So instead, you innovate. He places his folded garments atop it in layers like a Viking lasagna. Every 15 minutes, he rotates them. One sailor is sitting beneath the prow, using his body heat to dry a pair of leggings pressed between his back and the wood. The creases are coming back to life like the bones of a garment remembering what they were built for. You choose a less intimate method. You roll your second tunic into a tight coil, wrap it in a dry cloth. You turn to see a row of tunics hanging from the rigging folded into tight bundles. Lashed with string, swaying gently in the rain, but protected by a tarp of stitched hides. It's the ship's drying rack. You hadn't even noticed it before. A flat fold dries more evenly, especially when laid across warm wood. And if you're clever enough to combine the two fold first, then roll your halfway to dry. Possibly not. Historians still puzzle over how Vikings managed clothing, hygiene, and moisture at sea. Some suggest they brought spare sets and cycled them religiously. The cloth presses under your hands like dough. You slide it back into your chest, nestling it beside your other things, and feel strangely whole again. Because a well-folded cloak, even damp, dries faster. And together, you tie it in place. You watch it dangle, sway, drip. A tight roll exposes less surface area to the air, but more to heat. Someone who folds, not because it's easy, but because it brings a whisper of control to an otherwise chaotic world. You experiment. Your brown tunic folded into a square, then laid under your seat like a cushion begins to steam slightly from body heat. Beside you, a fellow sailor is stitching an oilskin pouch. You blink, you made a raincoat. For socks, he nods solemnly. These feet, princesses. Another sailor uses a fire-baked tile wrapped in cloth as a warming stone. He smiles. Hot rock, warm socks. Works every time. You're tempted to copy him, but your only tile is currently being used as a seat by a man twice your size who has not stood up since yesterday. You fold your cloak lengthwise, double it over, then wrap it into a spiral like a cinnamon bun of wool. Slowly, things begin to dry. Not all the way. Not perfectly. But the fold lines are reappearing. Someone lets out a low whistle. You offer to help hoist your tunic up there. The man nods, hands you a piece of knotted twine. There's a strange peace in it. Because even in this damp, gray, miserable stretch of the journey, The folds still matter. Even soaked, they hold. Even heavy, they remain neat. Even rained on, they remind you of who you are. Someone who tries. The day drags. The drizzle softens. The folds dry. You collect your tunic now, merely damp, and refold it twice, once to shape it, once to soothe it. And as the rain fades to mist and the sea sloshes gently beneath you, you lean back against the hull and close your eyes. Because out here, when you can fold through that kind of weather, you can fold through anything. The wind is calm, the rain is past, the world for once is still. This morning, no one speaks, not because of tension, just quiet. The ship rocks gently like a cradle, sails billow with the rhythm of breathing. Even the gulls circle overhead without squawking, as if they, too, understand that something in the air has shifted. You sit up, stretch, and open your chest one final time. Everything inside is folded perfectly. Cloak, crisp, still warm from yesterday's sun. Tunic, smooth, dry, layered at the edges with soft creases. Undershirt, pale linen, folded into thirds like a letter you haven't yet sent. Trousers, aligned, rolled, and tied in the middle with quiet precision. Socks, even paired, relaxed. You feel a small, unexpected surge of pride. Because today is your last day on this voyage, laid flat across your lap, sleeves pulled gently to the sides. You fold the fabric lengthwise, then once across the chest. And once more until it rests in a square, the kind of shape you might press to your cheek, just for comfort. Your last day folding clothes while bobbing between waves and legends. You align the shoulders, fold the sleeves inward, increase the body in half. Heavy, noble. A shadow you wear. You lay it out, tracing the fabric with your palms. It almost sighs under your touch. You fold it with frozen fingers. You fold it in joy. You fold it as ritual, as rebellion, as something quiet to believe in. You fold it once, then again, then once more. A perfect rectangle, full of movement, full of silence. When you press it down, you pause a moment longer than usual. Soon, you'll be on land again, walking like someone who's forgotten that the earth doesn't sway. Soon, you'll lay your tunic on a flat surface instead of your knees, and fold without worrying that a wave might slap your elbow mid-seam. But not yet. Today you get to fold one more time. You fold them the way you always have. Waistband to hem, legs together, rolled tight, tied with a strip of wool thread. Each time you do it, it feels faster, familiar, like muscle memory wrapped in warmth. You start with the undershirt. It's always first. I'll rest them near the top of the chest as if they deserve the view. The tunic is next. Brown, dependable, with that one patch at the elbow, that's now as much a part of the story as the cloth itself, then the trousers. The socks your little victories are folded last, tucked into each other like sleeping puppies. Then comes the cloak. Historians might never know exactly how Viking sailors folded their clothes, but you do, because you were here. You felt the wind tug at the sleeves, saw the rain pool in the creases, smelled the firewood smoke that lingered in every cuff. You close your chest with a soft click of the latch, and then you sit, eyes on the horizon, letting the memories fold themselves neatly into the corners of your mind. The long conversations about cloak pins, the warm bragging about sock repairs, the whispered debates about tunic rolls versus folds, the laughter, the routine, the calm. Soon, the shoreline will appear. You'll step off the ship, carrying a chest of folded wool and a heart unexpectedly full. And no one will understand why. The way you place a tunic on a shelf now feels sacred. But that's fine. You'll know. I'll always know. And as the light shifts, and the waves roll on without urgency, you rest your head on your folded cloak and close your eyes. It's time now for the folds to fade into dreams. Now, as your breathing slows and your limbs begin to loosen, you feel the folds of your memory softening too. The hum of the sea still echoes faintly in your ears. The rhythm of creaking wood and distant gulls lingers just beneath your awareness, like a song you almost remember. The warmth of your cloak folded, refolded, wrapped around your shoulders becomes the blanket of night itself, tucking you in. The weight of wool on your chest. The quiet satisfaction of a corner tucked just right. Your hands, once so focused on seams and symmetry, are still now, resting, remembering. Let your thoughts unfold like linen in the wind, no pressure, no rules, just the slow drifting of images. A square of fabric in the sun, let go of precision, let go of routine. Let yourself float like the ship on calm waters, rocking gently with the breath of sleep. You are warm, you are still, you are home, and the folds of darkness, they gather around you now. There is only peace.